Okay, so this is for college, high school, and anatomy, Mrs. Callhammer's class. And this is chapter 1, and this will be part 1. First of all, let's talk about, in this section, we're going to talk about describing what anatomy is compared to physiology and the different subdivisions of both anatomy and physiology. So anatomy is the study of the form and the actual structure of the body, where parts are in relation to other parts, what are things made out of, what kind of tissue, etc. Physiology is a little bit more complex in that it's how those different form or structures, how they actually work or how the body functions. We know we have these lungs and the trachea, and that we need oxygen, but how does the oxygen go through those organs to get into our blood, how that works. And form, so anatomy, physiology, function, are interrelated. They work together to perform the functions of the human body. The scientific method that is used in all different areas of science is just a process in which scientists examine natural things around them, observe them, develop a hypothesis based on information gathered to explain things, test it, experiment it, come up with results, data, and then determine if that hypothesis is met or if they need to re-go about it, try again, to rerun an experiment. So different divisions of anatomy. Anatomy can be split into either microscopic, small-scale anatomy, or macroscopic or gross anatomy. Not that it's gross. Okay, so microscopic is like things underneath a microscope that you can't see just looking with what's called the naked eye or unaided eye. So you have to use a microscope to see these things. Gross anatomy is things that you can see with your eyes. It's unaided, meaning you don't need a microscope to see it. And dissection is gross anatomy. Opening up an animal and looking to see where the lungs are in relation to the diaphragm or the heart. That's gross anatomy. Microscopic anatomy would be cutting off a section of that lung tissue and cutting it very thin and looking at it underneath a microscope. So there's divisions of microscopic anatomy. Cytology, which is the study of cells and the internal structures of those cells, which gets very detailed, very microscopic. And then histology, a little bit broader, study of tissues, and there's four main tissue types, but many different tissue types within them. They're actually trained cytologists, histologists. That's what they do, is they look at tissue underneath a microscope, just, for example, to see if somebody has cancer. Gross anatomy has more categories underneath it. Systemic is anatomy. Systemic means a functional body system. So if you were to study the nervous system or the urinary system separately of each other. Regional is looking at one specific region, like an ear, nose, throat doctor. They specialize in the ear, the nose, and the throat. Surface anatomy, looking at markings, superficial, outside surface things, and then internal body structures. Comparative anatomy, it sounds what it is. You're comparing the human body system to another species body system. Comparative anatomy. And then embryology is the study from conception to birth. So the stages of the embryo and when different cells or body parts form. And then cool branch of anatomy that I really like is pathology or pathologic anatomy, examining macroscopic and microscopic changes that result from disease, diagnosing diseases based on those changes. Radiographic anatomy or radiologist, somebody that studies different visualizations, CAT scans, X-rays, CT scans to visualize the body and help diagnose things. Physiology also has subdivisions that Cardiovascular, focus on heart, blood vessels, neurophysiology, functioning of the nerves in the nervous system, respiratory physiology, respiratory organs, etc. Pathophys is the relationship between an organ system and disease and how it functions. So thinking about these questions, what subdiscipline of anatomy may explore how the lower limb differs between humans and chimpanzees? What subdiscipline of anatomy focuses on cells? And what subdiscipline of physiology focuses on disease? So I said before, form and function, anatomy, physiology are interrelated. The best way to learn about anatomy, physiology is to look at them side by side. As you're learning the parts, where they are in relation to each other, learn how they work. They both use information from each other. That's why we combine them. Form follows function. So the structures are designed to perform their specific function. Again, with the lungs, if we look at the microscopic anatomy, at the end you have these little circles, look like little grapes, and called villi. And the layers of them, their tissue is so thin, just one layer of flat cells, that their anatomy is that, so that their function is so that carbon dioxide and oxygen can go back and forth readily. So without a thorough knowledge of the anatomy, the names of the parts and where the parts are and how they look, it's harder to understand physiology and how it works, and vice versa. To know how it works helps you know this. So that's why they're paired together. In this section, we'll talk about the characteristics of living things, the levels of organization in the body, and different organ systems, which you got an intro to the other day. So common to all living things, most living things have these things in common. They exhibit some kind of organization, some kind of structure. Metabolism, they have made up of chemical reactions. We'll talk about anabolic or reactions where small molecules are used to make bigger ones, big molecules, and catabolic reactions, big molecules are broken down into smaller ones. Both are important. Living things grow and develop, get their materials from the environment, develop over time. Living things respond to stimuli. If I turn off the lights and turn them back on, my pupils, the muscles that cause my pupils to move, would react to that stimuli, the stimuli being the light. Regulation, we maintain homeostasis, that steady state. That keeps us alive, the ability of different body systems to accommodate to the environment internally, externally. And then we reproduce new cells, skin cells, blood cells, and then the formation of a new organism through the sex cells. The levels of organization. The human body, the organism, is the most complex, down at the bottom, and the simplest is the chemical level. And we'll talk about all these levels. Atoms are the smallest units of matter. Atoms make up molecules, which one or two combined atoms, like example sugar, water, H2O, vitamins. And then macromolecules are just more complex, things like carbohydrates, proteins, DNA. And they make up these organelles, which are the organs of the cells. So the cellular level is the basic unit for structure and function. For every body system, we'll talk about the cells that are in that body system. A wide variety in the structures of different cells in the body, reflecting their specific function. And then cells make up tissues. Remember, I said there were 4 main categories of tissues. And tissues is just a group of cells, similar cells that perform a common function. So epithelial tissue, my skin, protects you. It also lines the organs. Connective tissue is the most diverse. It protects, supports, binds. Your bones are connective tissue, so they support support your body. Muscle tissue, self-explanatory, but they allow movement. And nervous tissue, very specialized, carries is designed to carry nerve impulses for communication. Again, next level. So we have tissues make up different organs. To be an organ in the body, it only needs minimum two different types of tissues. And the small intestine is composed of all four different tissue types: epithelial, connective, muscle, and nervous tissue. And they has a common function. So yes, every bone is an organ. Organ system. So different organs make up organ systems. They're related and they achieve a common function. So with that example, the small intestine, the large intestine, the stomach, esophagus, etc. are all organs that make up the digestive system. And its purpose is to take in, digest, absorb, and expel waste. Absorb nutrients and expel waste products. And then the 11 different organ systems make up the organism. And all those systems are working together and they function interdependently to make you who you are. And this is just an image showing those different levels of organization. So all organisms need to exchange nutrients, waste to carry on metabolism. And we need every single organism to perform different organ systems have to perform the activities. And there's 11 different types. This shows the integumentary, skeletal, muscular, and nervous system, and it lists their functions. And we went over that briefly. I introduced you. The skin, protective, and also involved with regulating body temperature. Skeletal framework, meaning gives you your frame, like my high cheekbones are because of my skeletal system. You wouldn't be able to stand, move without bones. Also, a large amount of calcium is stored in the bones. Muscular system, highlighted in blue here. These are your muscles that allow movement, also produce heat. Nervous system, communication. We can see the brain, the spinal cord, and the nerves that jet out from it. Quite cool. The next four: endocrine, cardiovascular, lymphatic, and the respiratory. The endocrine, we can see a few different ones zoomed in on. This is the thyroid, and behind it, these four little balls are the parathyroid that are right by your larynx. This is the reproductive system. We see the ovaries highlighted. Endocrine system is also a communication system. It does so by releasing hormones into the blood. Cardiovascular, there goes my stimuli, the lights. The cardiovascular system is made up of the heart, blood vessels, and the blood, and its purpose is to circulate oxygenated blood. Everybody says it keeps you alive. Well, every body system keeps you alive. The heart specifically pumps the blood. Lymphatic system is really cool. It has immune system functions, also circulates fluids in the body. Respiratory system, breathing, getting that air in and out. And the last four, the urinary, digestive, and the both different sex reproductive systems. So urinary system eliminates waste in the form of urine. There's your kidneys there, the bladder. Digestive, I already talked a lot about. Take the food in, break it down, absorb the nutrients, and expel waste. A reproductive, we got male and female. A lot of differences there, but the main goal is to produce a new life and to maintain sex cells. So what characteristics are common to all life? Think about that. List the levels of organization within the body, starting with the most complex, which would be us, and which organ system is responsible for filtering waste products from the blood and excreting them in the urine. So think about those things, and that is it.